Arguably the best episodes of Enterprise can be found in the show's third and fourth seasons, but there's some real gems to be found in season 2 also, and I think one in particular stands out for me, Regeneration. When I heard that there was going to be a Borg story on Enterprise, I thought this was a terrible idea, that it might be a sign that the writers had run out of story ideas because the Borg had been so overused on Voyager. And of course, considering First Contact was made with the Borg in the 24th century and Enterprise is set during the 22nd century, I was fearing a significant continuity breach. However, I was pleasantly surprised because the way in which this Borg story was told was very clever. The implementation of the Borg is believable and done in such a way that it pays a suitable tribute to future Trek canon and also carefully doesn't break continuity in a serious way. Regeneration has become one of my favourite Borg stories, and that's the episode I'm going to focus on in today's video. Anyway, on the subject of Star Trek, it's time now to talk about today's sponsor, Star Trek Fleet Command, a free-to-play, massive multiplayer online game for Android and iOS devices, where you build your armada of starships for combat against the mighty empires of the Romulans and Klingons. There's some classic ships to build, including the Klingon battlecruiser, the USS Franklin from Star Trek Beyond, and of course, the flagship of the Federation, the Constitution-class USS Enterprise. You will recruit officers like Spock, Kirk, Uhura, Sulu, and more, and you'll work to level up, research, and develop new weapons and defenses, expand your starbase construction facilities, and upgrade and repair your vessels. You can build alliances of fleets and, of course, battle other players online. Star Trek Fleet Command has a nice balance of strategy as well as resource management elements as you carefully manage your ship construction and maintenance, as well as the opportunity for exploration of the galaxy and, of course, plenty of space combat with high-quality graphical detail. The game incorporates well-known aliens and references to Star Trek lore and mythology that hardcore fans should appreciate. So, power up the warp drive, bring the phasers and photon torpedoes online, and let the galactic conquest begin. Download Star Trek Fleet Command for free from the link below. Okay, welcome back. So the episode opens in the Arctic with a scientific research team analysing the remains of a crashed ship. They find Borg frozen in the ice, but of course this is the first time human beings have ever seen one, so they have no idea who they are. The team deduces that the vessel was a sphere. This is in fact the very same sphere that the Enterprise E shot down in Star Trek First Contact when they travelled back to 2063. The fragments, along with some Borg, landed in the Arctic and have been frozen there for 90 years. The opening portion of the episode in the Arctic is reminiscent of the film The Thing. The Borg eventually thaw out and begin assimilating the research team. Regeneration is perhaps the most intense and suspenseful episode of Enterprise. We as the audience know that these creatures are highly dangerous, but the scientists haven't got a clue what they're dealing with, and composer Brian Tyler does a phenomenal job with the music, and it really complements this episode's dark tone and sense of foreboding. Starfleet Command finds out that contact has been lost with the research team, so Admiral Forrest orders Commander Williams to get a shuttle ready. They visit the Arctic base, but find that it's abandoned. I love this brief scene, actually. Williams and Forrest only have one line each in this episode. They don't speak in this particular scene, but the look they give each other says it all. The situation is serious, but in truth, only the audience can know just how serious it truly is. 24th century Borg drones have assimilated a research crew, commandeered control of a transport vessel, and they're now loose in the 22nd century. This is a phenomenal setup for a story. Starfleet sends the data of the research team to the Enterprise crew. The transport was tracked travelling at warp 3.9, which, as Trip points out, is impossible considering those vessels can't exceed warp 1.4. The Borg have obviously modified the ship. The Enterprise encounters the transport, now quite Borgified. It's attacking a Tarkalian ship. As you might expect, Archer hails the Borg vessel, thinking that he's going to get a reply. That's another thing. I liked how in this episode we were seeing the Enterprise crew of the 22nd century dealing with the Borg for the first time with no knowledge of how they operate, an alien species they don't yet understand and who won't react or behave like any other race they've ever encountered. Seeing their first reactions to the Borg made the Borg seem fresh again. Now, the Enterprise has no problem disabling the Borg ship's weapons, as the ship is still being upgraded, and the next encounter will be a different story. The crew brings the Tarkalian survivors aboard, and Phlox treats them in sickbay. They've been injected with Borg nanoprobes. Phlox and T'Pol deduce that the survivors are being transformed into cybernetic life forms, and that the Arctic researchers are likely going through a similar process. Later, in his ready room, Archer talks about how he felt that there was something familiar about all of this. He pulls up a speech by Zephram Cochrane, made 89 years ago. Cochrane gave a commencement address at Princeton, and he started to talk about a group of cybernetic creatures from the future who tried to stop his warp flight from happening and to prevent first contact with the Vulcans. Cochrane said they were defeated by a group of humans who were also from the future. As we know, these humans were the crew of the Enterprise E. As the skeptical T'Pol points out, Cochrane was famous for his imaginative stories and was frequently intoxicated. Archer said that at the time, no one took Cochrane's story seriously, and he later recanted the whole thing. Yet Archer still believes there might be something to it. Back in sickbay, the Borgified Tarkalians wake up and attack Phlox. They exit sickbay, but Phlox has been injected with nanoprobes. The Borg climb through the Jeffries tubes. They begin assimilating parts of the ship. Reed takes a team to find them. In a manner similar to how Picard tried to communicate with the Borg in Q-Who when he met the first drone in engineering, Reed tries to stop one of the drones with a warning. Of course, we, the audience, know this isn't going to work, so he fires his phase pistol at her, and after another shot, the drone's internal shields adapt, making the weapons useless. Reed and his team can't defeat them. Archer decides that the only course of action left is to blow the drones out the airlock and into space. That's one way of dealing with the Borg. In sickbay, Phlox is proving a bit more difficult to assimilate than most aliens, so his plan is to remove the nanoprobes in his body by exposing himself to Omicron particles. Reed works on upgrading the phase pistols so that they can be more effective against the Borg the next time. The transport vessel is now even more Borgified, and its engines and weapons are being continuously upgraded. The incremental enhancements mean that each time the Enterprise crew encounters them, they become that little bit tougher to beat. Enterprise catches up with them, and after firing at a vulnerable EPS manifold, the Borg ship drops out of warp, but they remotely activate the systems they modified on Enterprise, and main power starts to fail. The Borg hail Enterprise, and they say, "You will be assimilated, resistance is futile." Now, some fans have criticised this scene, asking why didn't the Borg open with "We are the Borg"? Of course, it could be argued that this opening phrase was omitted to preserve continuity so that official first contact with the Borg could be maintained as happening in the 24th century. However, it's important to remember that in both Q-Who and The Best of Both Worlds in TNG, the Borg never said "We are the Borg" either when they encountered the Enterprise D. The following clip shows the first thing that the Borg said to the Enterprise D crew in Q-Who.
This is Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the U.S.
We have analyzed your defensive capabilities as being unable to withstand us. If you defend yourselves, you will be punished.
And this next clip is the first thing that the Borg say in The Best of Both Worlds.
I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
Jean-Luc Picard, Captain of the Starship Enterprise, Registry NCC-1701D. You will lower your shields and prepare to transport yourself aboard our vessel. If you do not cooperate, we will destroy your ship.
So this omission of the phrase "We are the Borg" in Regeneration isn't technically inaccurate. So the Borg start firing at Enterprise, and Trip is working to disable the Borg systems on the ship. Archer and Reed beam over to the Borg vessel to plant some charges. They fight some Borg, and a few of them beam over to Enterprise. It was genuinely awesome to see the Borg walking around on the Enterprise sets. Anyway, the Borg ship starts to use its cutting beam on Enterprise. As the drones on the Borg ship start to adapt to Archer and Reed's weapons, Trip disables the cybernetic systems and main power comes back online. Archer and Reed beam back to Enterprise and Reed detonates the charges. Though Archer's primary objective was to rescue the Arctic scientists, it's becoming clear that that is no longer feasible. They're drones now. As he tells T'Pol, there isn't anyone on that ship we can help. As the Borg begin to regenerate their vessel, Archer gives Reed the order to hit the Borg with everything they've got. They destroy the ship. Phlox is recovering in sickbay, and he tells T'Pol and Archer that when he was connected with the collective, that he heard the Borg sending a message, a subspace message, a numerical sequence, over and over. The computer analyzes the numbers, their spatial coordinates. The Borg were telling their homeworld how to find Earth. The signal was sent to the Delta Quadrant, which will take 200 years for the message to reach its destination. As we know, the Borg originated in the Delta Quadrant. As Archer points out, it seems that the invasion has only been postponed to the 24th century. It could be argued that this conclusion creates a predestination paradox. Though the official first contact with the Borg was in Q-Who, when Q sent the Enterprise D to the Delta Quadrant in the 24th century, we do know that from the finale of TNG's first season that the Borg were at least aware of the Federation because Romulan and Federation outposts were destroyed along the neutral zone by the Borg. At the time, it wasn't known that this was the Borg doing that. Perhaps the Borg knew about the Federation from this subspace signal. Regeneration is arguably one of the best episodes of Season 2 of Enterprise, and I think it's right up there with the likes of Carbon Creek, Dead Stop, Judgment, The Expanse, First Flight, and Cogenitor. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.